Well, don't talk about it, be about it.
All right, then. Guess it's time to throw down. All right, so we're killing time in the hotel, and I thought this might be a good conversation starter. What are you doing?
Whatever I want.
Clearly. I am sorry, everybody, for Joel's behavior. He's all hopped up on that Mountain Dew.
I've had like 3 Cherry Coke Zeros.
In a row.
Today, yeah.
All right. So I thought this would be a good kind of like a what-if conversation. So this guy texted and said, hey, I'll be teaching an in-service for my department. It's a full-day class. I've got a total of 300 rounds per guy. I've got some ideas on what I want to focus on, but I'm looking for pointers and tips. My group is largely unskilled with a few guys sprinkled in who train with me a little bit. So I'm looking for tips or pointers that would help me out. Instructional tips, like how would I structure the day, drills, that sort of thing. This is the first time I'm leading an in-service class. So to sum it up, he's teaching in-service for his department. He's got a full day, like we'll call it a full 8-hour day. Most of the guys are not going to be really familiar with anything, like they're not anything out of like a basic law enforcement program, and he's got 300 rounds per guy to budget with. We'll just assume it's all handgun related because that's kind of most what cop in-service classes are. So with that in mind, what would you tell this guy? Like, how would you structure it? How's he going to get the best bang for his buck? How's he not going to overload his class?
Well, I'll say some things that aren't super nice, I suppose.
All right.
So I think the temptation would be, since you have a lower round count, to just sit there and like babble over and over and talk to him extended amount of time. I don't like that idea. Obviously, well, I guess it's not obvious. What I would suggest is you're going to do dry fire training to hopefully kind of like understand the concepts, then shoot some ammo to validate like what you think is happening, or validate you're doing it right, and then do more dry fire. Then after some dry fire, shoot some more live fire ammo, and stuff like that, and bounce back and forth. Does that make sense, you think, for a format?
So yeah, you stole my answers. Are you looking at my test? So that's exactly.
You have to with that.
Yeah, with if you're trying to stretch 300 rounds over 8 hours, and honestly, I say stretch. Would it be nice if you had more ammo? Yes. However, with folks that are relatively new to these concepts, let's assume he's getting 1 or 2 in-service training days a year with them. So not a lot of supported training for most agencies. The reality is you have to dry fire it some to build an understanding. But also, I like the idea of dry firing it because you're giving them a piece now that they can take with them and go home, hopefully, and train. If you don't dry fire it, you just talk about it, most people are not going to make the connection of how the dry fire should look simply from having live fired a particular drill. Mm-hmm. They're not going to make the connection, they're not going to do it, and even if they try, they're not fully going to understand how to assess it and get anything out of it. So by dry firing it, you serve 2 purposes. We cut out some of the mistakes early. We show them kind of what we're looking for before we live fire. It helps us stretch ammo, and we're also developing the ability and the skill and the understanding of how we can take that training home and continue to improve. So I think the dry fire is mandatory with a setup like that.
I agree.
So with that in mind, how would you what kind of structure would you or progression would you build? For we'll say he's got 3.5 hours in the morning. Cops like their long lunches, and maybe 3
and donuts.
That is a vicious rumor.
Okay, I like donuts. Maybe cops don't.
Bagels. They're more into bagels. But let's say he's got 3.5 hours in the morning, 3.5 hours in the afternoon. Somewhere in the range of 6-7 hours of actual boots on the ground training. How do you structure a progression for a day that looks like that?
Well, I don't know, deep subject. Depends a little bit on your audience. So for I'll give you the answer not for you. For a more skilled or seasoned group, I like the idea of doing something more complicated at the beginning to kind of give them an assessment, whether it be a standard, a qual, whatever, a little more complicated to see where things break down. Mm-hmm. I'm making some assumptions, but let's say for in-service, it's people that probably don't shoot a lot and probably aren't super skilled. Is that a fair place to start?
Yeah, generally in-service is going to be the wide net that catches everybody. So it's going to catch your shooters, but it's also going to catch the guys that want to train, but it's also going to catch everybody else that only comes if they are being voluntold, which they are.
Yeah, I've been to one of those before where it's you have to qual with your gun every year, and it's
and they're like, what, every year?
It's, how about this? I don't know how people that know me, I guess, be able to figure it out easily. If agency that I train with quite a bit, I know most of the guys that show up. I can call them by first name, and all of a sudden, it's people that I've never seen before, with goofy looking. I know I'm being unkind. Goofy looking gear, and I've been training with these guys for a year, and I know pretty much everybody by name, and I've never seen this person before. So if we're starting with that, you have to do. Well, I think you should do the kind of like crawl, walk, run approach. So an easy place to start, I think, for most people is just draw a sight picture, which just kind of, for example, let's say we want to do I wanted to build to drawing and shooting 6 shots rapid fire on a target. Well, you're making some assumptions that I know how to grip the gun, that I can find my sight. And if I draw the gun, I'm like, oh, son of a... All right, and I'm like, pop, 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 pop. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, I suppose, but you haven't really taught me yet how to draw the pistol and make sure I can find my sight. You haven't really shown me how I should be gripping the pistol. So I'd have more of a progression in mind, where maybe you like draw to just sight picture, making sure you can find your sight. Then you could do some drills. We've got like the gun aimed at the target, and you're pressing the trigger immediately without influencing the gun. Then you do a little bit of shooting, and we talk about grip and how the gun works in your hands, and kind of like each concept builds. Is that fair?
Absolutely. That's exactly where I was going with it. Like, yeah.
Great minds think alike.
I mean, it's not really great TV when they both agree, but unfortunately, I think there's a pretty well-worn path here that's successful, and that's the reason that it's the well-worn path. But yeah,
that's fair.
Depending on your audience and how skilled they are, or how often they touch their gun, doing something like building the index, draw a sight picture might be where you need to start. But I absolutely think, we're going to spend some time with trigger control at speed, dry and live, working on pressing the trigger aggressively, not influencing the gun. We're going to spend some time managing input, something like one-shot return, where our whole goal is just to have the dot return without any extra input. We're not shoving on the gun, the dot's not dipping below the spot that we're focused on, and we're really understanding, like, we want the dot to go up and we want it to come right back down. We want it to return with the same speed and intensity that it left with and stop precisely on the spot. And then we'll work into the concepts that people who watch this kind of stuff, your channel, my channel, would be familiar with. We're going to work some reactive shooting, kind of playing around with color confirmation, maybe a bouncing ball. We'll work a little bit of predictive shooting. Probably not as much as we would like with the ammo budget we're talking about, but a little bit to give them an idea of like, hey, this is the gold standard of what your grip and vision should be able to hold up to, kind of understand where, hey, maybe we'll go here next time if we got a little more time, a little better understanding. But the idea is we want to work through understanding not only what the grip needs to do, how to press the trigger without influencing the gun, but then what kind of information levels can I use in order to change the pacing at which I engage targets based on difficulty and distance. And I mean, depending on how quickly your students pick it up, how much they're able to process, how burned out they get and exhausted, like that could be your whole morning.
What would you say if I said I would toss, depending on the audience, toss predictive shooting completely?
As I was talking about, I was thinking the same thing, especially with the ammo budget. It's like, you know what, I could take it or leave it. It may not even be really worth talking about.
So I'd be like, people get a little bit artistic about distances, but let's say we start shooting 6 shots at 20 yards.
Okay.
All right. So it could be a bouncing ball, or maybe it's corrective, depending on how things are going. So it's like, no, okay, I bring it back and then I shoot. So we do that. Then at like mid-range, so 15-ish yards, probably depending on the person. Then it's like, we're looking for a bouncing ball. I'd like that. And then maybe that's 15 to 10 yards, depending on the person, the skill level. Then we get into like the 5 or 7 yards. It's like, okay, you must now react to just seeing the color. The bouncing ball just doesn't really get it done at this distance, and the corrective shooting should not be necessary.
Yep.
But just like as we get a progression, whereas you're getting, whether you work close or going far, starting far or work close, you're just like, this is the sight picture we're looking for this range. And then maybe, so let's say you're doing 15 yards and you have a wide variety of skill, then it might be the stronger guys just see color. Maybe the, I wouldn't say weaker guys still starting their journey. Then it's more of a bouncing ball from 15. But then there's a little bit of it depends, but you're kind of telling the people more or less what's up.
Yeah, like I don't hate that idea at all, because then you're giving them not only different ways to utilize their sights, because it's very likely that if this is all relatively new to them, the idea that they can use their red dot or even their irons in any way other than a stop still stable sighting system is probably going to be a completely new and foreign concept. So not only are we going to have to walk them through it, but I think it's also useful to at least initially give them an idea of like where it might be applicable. Mm-hmm. So then they've kind of got a range. Now, the hope would be long term they start to apply it where it's useful to them. It's more of a sliding scale as opposed to when A happens, you do B. When C happens, you do D. It's more of a sliding scale where as I get closer, maybe it blends from corrective into bouncing ball, or as I get a little closer, it blends from bouncing ball into more color. There's kind of like a sliding, movable scale, but that would be kind of on down the road. And I agree, getting rid of predictive shooting in this context I wouldn't hate it. I like to teach predictive shooting with reactive shooting because I think they complement each other very well in order to, it's almost like by shooting the one, you understand what the other one is by relief. But if you don't have the time or you don't have the ammo to dedicate to it, I think potentially introducing it might muddy the waters more than help.
Especially if the concepts are new.
Yeah.
Even though you spell it out, like this is not engagement, this is not how I'm suggesting you do this for work. Sometimes people are like, well, we learned this in training, and it's like, it's so much going on. So people are trying to absorb it all.
Right.
So if I had the day, it'd be like what we're talking about, some form of marksmanship. Mm-hmm. Maybe you get into multiple targets, like 2 or maybe 3 targets, a little bit of like a closer and a farther target, but then that'd be the morning, it'd be lunchtime.
Yeah. So then what do you think? Like basic movement pieces in the afternoon? Mm-hmm. Some sort of like disconnecting the feet from the shooting. Mm-hmm. Somebody, they might see like a bar hop or some sort of like a vision barrier drill where we're trying to move and our feet carry us wherever they need to go, but our dot is what's telling us when we shoot, regardless of how stabilized our feet are, something like that.
100%.
And then, like honestly, that could take you a little while, and then maybe work on like just a generalized like shooting on the move type situation with the idea that maybe we wrap up with maybe like retreating or advancing build drills or some sort of drill that like combines them both. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, I love all that stuff.
Okay.
Like you said, and you could like package. So for people not familiar, bar hop, it's you just put a stick on the ground. You make people 2 targets, shoot the left target, right target, step across the stick, left target, right target. The idea being you kind of continuously doing the shooting. So, and then I just step across the middle. So basically it's not like one position, I shoot each target, then step across to another position and shoot each target. But you can kind of accomplish that in a bunch of different ways. That's kind of a way to baby step, I suppose, you towards a bigger scenario where then you could whack one target and then you have a vision barrier or just a target stand backwards or upside down, like the target up high. Sorry if I use my words, so you can't see through it. And then once you move across, you'll have like some targets that you're going to shoot. But the idea being, as soon as you see them and your sight looks good, you want to engage them, even if you're still moving your feet. But you could also accomplish the same thing just by having a cone or a stick further back and a cone or stick further forward. It's like you shoot from this one as you lean out or moving forward, shooting the other one. So you can accomplish it a whole lot of ways, just to like the concept you want people to work on.
Yeah. And then I think having kind of a culminating piece at the end that would ideally bring together most or all the concepts that you've worked on. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be long. Law enforcement loves in-depth scenarios where it's got a backstory and a plot.
Yeah, well, what's my motivation here?
Exactly. So,
well, how many times has he been to prison?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the address that I'm going to?
Yes. Yeah. What color is the house?
Uh-huh. So, just some sort of culminating exercise, even if it's just, a couple of targets in 1 or 2 positions or it could just be retreating and advancing build drills. Maybe you got 1 target here on the beep, you draw backing up, shoot a build drill as you're moving back 5 yards or so, you move around a vision barrier or some sort of cone and you shoot another target as you're advancing on doing another build drill. It's a 12-round drill. It'll take you a few seconds to shoot, but you're piecing together a lot of the stuff you worked on for the day. I think that's a really nice way to bring it all together. And if it looks similar to something that is relevant to the job, cops tend to like that. But it doesn't necessarily need to have a whole backstory and actors and scenarios and everything else.
The other thing I think it's weird, people get too artistic about it. Like, well, in 1994, let me give you the study about this cop shootout that happened.
That happened this one time.
Yeah, this happened this one time, and the distances for this shootout looks like were 7.5 yards and 13 3/4 yards. So we set up the drill with those specific distances. It's like, instead, I like the idea of just a concept. It's like, well, so you're at like arm's distance length, and all of a sudden you start blasting. So you're trying to move your feet while you're drawing your pistol, engaging quickly. Like, oh, I've never been a copper, but that seems realistic enough to me.
Yep.
Or it's like you're kind of running to the sound of gunfire, you know, or whatever narrative. Like, I'm running forward really hard or moving forward, but then I decide it's time to shoot. So I'm trying to get the gun up and shoot, but I'm still moving, so I'm trying to get there quickly. And then I'm trying to kind of decelerate, but have the gun up and let my sights tell me when to shoot. Like, oh, this sounds like a lot going on. This sounds more complicated. So even just something like that, as far as a concept goes, I like more than like a specific. You're right. You're going to shoot 5 rounds to the body and 2 rounds to the head, and the 2 rounds you fired in the head, it turns out he had a metal plate in his head installed that didn't stop bullets. So then you need to shoot him 3 times in the torso and twice in the kneecap. And it's just like, I've seen this stuff before. I saw one where it's like, he's gonna be wearing armor, so you have to shoot him 4 times the 5.56 in the chest, but then once in the head, because that'll neutralize him. Like, okay, dude, cool. Instead, it's just like the idea of it's further away, but you have to shoot it engaged, make the shots. It's close, it's happening fast. You got to run, do some running, then decelerate and shoot. Like, this stuff sounds more practical. I guess I don't have any other word to use.
Another reason I like much more basic culminating exercises than long drawn out scenarios is reset time and reps. You know, every cop's been through some long drawn out, way too complicated backstory with this long scenario, and you get one crack at it. And in the end, you know, it's a 20-minute debrief of all the things you did wrong. You're supposed to take all these takeaways from it. And instead, I think being able to rep something out quickly multiple times in a row, there's way more training value in it. So, you know, instead of a single run and then you're sitting in a classroom for an hour while everybody else gets their run, like, no. Can I get 6, 8, 10 reps on this thing and learn some lessons and then be done?
Yeah.
So I'm a much bigger fan of that. So, yeah, for those guys out there that are like trying to plan in-service training, or how do I bring the gospel of like the performance shooting to the masses, you know, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to feed them the whole book at once. We can kind of tear out pages one at a time, feed them concepts a little bit as you go. So hopefully this is helpful. If you've got more questions about this, or honestly anything else you want answered, if it's short, I'll answer in the comments. If it's long, we'll make another video. So drop that stuff down in the comments. If you want to do the like, share, subscribe thing, that's cool. If you're not, I'm not your real dad. I can't tell you what to do, and that's okay too. Hope that helps, guys. Take care.
Great work.